Hello aspirants, welcome to daily UPSC Current Affairs revision series by Insights IAS. In today's session, we'll cover the ancient Buddhist site of Sarnath's UNESCO Inscription, the Corporate Mitra Scheme, BitChat Repositories, the Kimi K3 AI Model, and the National Biodiversity Authority. And in mapping, we'll explore UNESCO's list of World Heritage in danger. So, without any further delay, let's get started. Let's begin with something genuinely proud for every Indian, the ancient Buddhist site of Sarnath being inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List. Here's the context. At the 48th session of the World Heritage Committee in Busan, South Korea, India's official nomination, the ancient Buddhist site of Sarnath, was inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List. Now, here's a genuinely important number cluster to hold on to right at the start. This marks India's 45th World Heritage Property, placing the nation 6th globally, and 2nd in the Asia-Pacific region for total UNESCO sites. That's exactly the kind of ranking detail UPSC loves testing. So what exactly is this site? The ancient Buddhist site of Sarnath is a serial World Heritage Property, preserving one of the 4 principal destinations of Buddhist pilgrimage. It was inscribed under 2 UNESCO criteria, Criteria 3, for its enduring spiritual tradition, and Criteria 6, for its direct association with pivotal events in the life of Gautama Buddha, specifically his first sermon, the Dharmachakra Pravartan, and the establishment of the Buddhist Sangha. On its geographical location, it's situated within Varanasi, Uttar Pradesh, India. And here's an important structural detail. The serial property actually comprises 2 primary components, the Chaukhandi Stupa and the archaeological remains of Sarnath, which itself encompasses the Dhammik Stupa, the Dharmarajika Stupa, the Mool Gandhkuti Vihar, and the Ashokan Pillar site. So when we say serial property, it means multiple linked sites counted together as one UNESCO listing. Now, let's understand its history and sacred context, because this is genuinely rich, so let's slow down. On ancient nomenclature, it was known historically in Buddhist literature by different names, Rishipatana, Ishipatana, and Mrigadava. On the first sermon, this is the heart of the site's spiritual importance. Gautama Buddha visited Sarnath in the 6th century BCE to deliver his first sermon, known as Turning of the Wheel of the Law or Dharmachakra Pravartan, introducing the principles of the Noble Eightfold Path and the concept of Triratna. That single event is exactly why this site holds such profound significance for Buddhists worldwide. On multifaceted patronage and decline, the site evolved over centuries through royal, monastic, and lay patronage from the pre-Mauryan era in the 5th to 4th century BCE, right up until its decline and eventual destruction in the 12th century CE. And on rediscovery and ASI excavations, the site fell into obscurity for centuries, until its rediscovery in the 18th century. For over 150 years, the Archaeological Survey of India has conducted excavations here, revealing a continuous, stratified settlement spanning a remarkable 16 centuries. Now coming to the architectural and archaeological features, and this is genuinely where Prelims loves to dig deep. There are the Dhammik and Chaukhandi Stupas, massive structural stupas marking sacred spots where the Buddha met his first disciples and delivered core teachings. And here's a genuinely fascinating fact, one that connects Sarnath directly to modern India, the Mauryan Ashokan Pillar and Lion Capital. The site features the historic Mauryan-era pillar, carved from polished sandstone, and its polished lion capital, excavated during 1904 to 1906, was later adopted as the national emblem of India. Think about that. The emblem you see on every Indian passport and currency note traces directly back to this very site. There are also monastic ensembles or viharas, preserved brick foundations of ancient monasteries, temples, and the Mulagandhakuti Vihara, showcasing structural evolution across the Mauryan, Kushan, and Gupta periods. And there's classic Gupta art. The site yielded world-famous masterpieces of Gupta art, including the Dharmachakra Pravartan Buddha statue, currently housed at India's earliest site museum, established right here in Sarnath in 1904. So, to quickly recap for your exam, the ancient Buddhist site of Sarnath became India's 45th UNESCO World Heritage Property, placing India 6th globally and 2nd in Asia Pacific for total sites. Remember its 2 components, Chokhandi Stupa, and the archaeological remains of Sarnath. It's linked to Buddha's first sermon in the 6th century BCE, and that its Ashokan line capital became India's national emblem. Now, let's move to a genuinely practical scheme aimed at helping small businesses, the Corporate Mitra Scheme. Here's the context. The Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, IICA, Shillong, organized an awareness webinar on the Corporate Mitra Scheme for youth, students, and MSMEs in Arunachal Pradesh. So, what exactly is this scheme? It's a central initiative designed to create a certified cadre of trusted, trained paraprofessionals, known as Corporate Mitras. These individuals provide accessible and affordable business compliance, accounting, and advisory services, specifically to micro, small, and medium enterprises, MSMEs. Think of it as creating a trained army of local business helpers, so small companies don't have to hire expensive full-time compliance staff. It's implemented by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, MCA, Government of India, and its aim is genuinely practical to empower MSMEs in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities by reducing their regulatory and secretarial compliance burden, enhancing ease of doing business, and equipping young graduates with practical industry-relevant skills to foster employment. Now, let's go through the key features of this scheme. On target capacity, there's an initial pan-India target of 2,000 participants, with 200 seats reserved exclusively for the Northeastern region, NER. On financial concessions for NER, this is genuinely important to remember. Candidates from the northeastern states receive a 50% fee concession on registration and training fees. On the scope of services, accredited corporate mitras handle non-core business operations for MSMEs, including regulatory filings, secretarial compliance, basic accounting, tax filings, financial documentation, and governance-related tasks. There's also digital training integration. The formal Corporate Mitra training course is hosted and made accessible through the government's Swayam Plus educational portal. And there's a genuine skill development bridge here. This scheme bridges the gap between academic education and industry needs by training young graduates to work as qualified paraprofessionals for local businesses. On significance, by outsourcing compliance to certified corporate mitras, MSMEs can reduce regulatory burdens, avoid penalties, and focus on business growth instead. And this creates skilled employment for graduates in the Northeast specifically by training them as corporate mitras, supporting entrepreneurship and the broader Viksit Bharat at 2047 vision. So, to quickly recap for your exam, the Corporate Mitra Scheme under the Ministry of Corporate Affairs trains paraprofessionals to help MSMEs with compliance and accounting, with a pan-India target of 2,000 participants. Remember the 200 seats reserved for the Northeast, the 50% fee concession for NER candidates, and its training delivery through the Swayam Plus portal. Now, let's move to a genuinely fascinating and slightly controversial technology topic, BitChat Repositories. The context is that the Indian Cyber Crime Coordination Center, I4C, under the Ministry of Home Affairs, directed GitHub to remove 3 repositories hosting BitChat. So, what exactly is BitChat? It's an open-source, decentralized, peer-to-peer, P2P messaging application developed to operate completely without internet connectivity, cellular networks, or central servers. Now just imagine that for a second. A messaging app that works even when there's absolutely no internet or mobile network at all. The repositories on GitHub host its source code and Android installation release files. Now here's a genuinely interesting origin story. It was conceived by Doris Lima and developed by Jack Dorsey, the co-founder of Twitter, now X, and CEO of Block. So let's understand how it actually works. It uses device-to-device mesh networking, relying on Bluetooth Low Energy (BLE) to discover nearby devices within roughly 30 to 100 meters. And here's the clever part. Each device acts as both a client and a relay node, hopping encrypted messages across a chain of smartphones until reaching the intended recipient. Essentially, your phone becomes a tiny relay tower, passing messages along to the next phone and the next until it reaches its destination. It also has a dual transport layer, integrating local BLE mesh connections with the decentralized internet-based NOST protocol whenever global internet connectivity actually becomes available. Now, coming to the key features of BitChat. There's complete infrastructure independence. It functions seamlessly during total internet blackouts, natural disasters, or network throttling. There's zero registration and full anonymity. It does not require phone numbers, email addresses, central accounts, or mandatory user verification. There's end-to-end encryption. Messages are secured using the noise protocol framework, ensuring intermediate relay nodes cannot read or modify the payload. There's an absence of centralized logs. It operates without central servers, leaving no centralized communication logs or subscriber databases for law enforcement to subpoena. And there's ephemeral data and panic mode, featuring automated message deletion and quick data wiping triggers to protect user data from physical seizure. Now, let's understand the implications, because this is genuinely where the controversy lies. There's reduced lawful interception. The lack of user verification and central logging makes subscriber identification and criminal investigations genuinely more difficult. There's bypassing public order measures. Mesh-based communication can facilitate coordination during internet shutdowns and evade lawful surveillance entirely. And there are due process concerns. Critics contend that invoking Section 79, subsection 3, Clause B instead of Section 69A of the IT Act bypasses procedural safeguards and judicial oversight established by the landmark Shreya Singhal and Anuradha Bhasin judgments. That's a genuinely important legal debate worth remembering. So, to quickly recap for your exam, BitChat is a decentralized, internet-free messaging app conceived by Doris Lima and developed by Jack Dorsey using Bluetooth low-energy mesh networking. Remember, it offers zero registration and end-to-end encryption via the noise protocol framework, and that I4C's takedown action raised due process concerns over using Section 79, subsection 3, Clause B instead of Section 69A of the IT Act. Now let's move to a genuinely mind-boggling AI development, the Kimi K3 AI Model. The context is that Chinese AI startup Moonshot AI unveiled Kimi K3, introducing the world's first open-source model in the 3 trillion parameter class. Now, that's a genuinely staggering number, so let's understand what it actually means. So, what exactly is Kimi K3? It's a multimodal, open-weight reasoning large language model (LLM) designed for complex software engineering, long-horizon coding, visual reasoning, and enterprise knowledge work. And here's the headline figure worth holding firmly. Built with 2.8 trillion total parameters, it stands as the largest open-source AI model released to date. It comes from Moonshot AI, a Beijing-based artificial intelligence unicorn backed by tech giants including Alibaba, Tencent, and Meituan. Now let's understand how it actually works, because the underlying architecture is genuinely clever. First, there's sparse latent mixture of experts, or MOE, using a stable latent MOE framework, housing 896 experts. But here's the efficiency trick. It dynamically activates only 16 experts per token to maintain high computational efficiency, while keeping resource demands manageable during inference. So even though the model is massive overall, it only wakes up a small fraction of itself for any given task. That's genuinely why it can be efficient despite its enormous size. Second, there's Kimi Delta Attention, KDA, incorporating custom architectural improvements to process massive context windows smoothly without any performance degradation. And third, there's Attention Residuals, optimizing information flow across deep network layers, allowing the model to perform deeper multi-step reasoning and retain long horizon focus during extended coding tasks. Now, coming to the key features of Kimi K3, and this is genuinely impressive. There's a massive 1 million token context window, capable of ingesting and processing entire software repositories, complex legal stacks, or extensive technical documentation, all in a single prompt. There's autonomous long-horizon coding, executing end-to-end software engineering tasks with minimal human intervention, including writing GPU kernel optimizations, building compilers, and designing microchips. There's integrated visual and multimodal reasoning, combining core software engineering with image and spatial reasoning, supporting automated tasks in game development, front-end design, and computer-aided design (CAD). And there's open weight availability. Moonshot released full model weights on Hugging Face alongside a detailed technical report under an open license, enabling global self-hosting and research, a genuinely open approach compared to many closed-source Western AI models. On significance, Kimi K3 demonstrates that Chinese AI firms can genuinely compete with leading models like OpenAI and Anthropic, narrowing the global AI technology gap. And by open sourcing its 2.8 trillion parameter MOE model, Kimi K3 expands access to advanced AI, lowers development costs, and accelerates global AI research more broadly. So, to quickly recap for your exam, Kimi K3 from China's Moonshot AI is the world's largest open-source AI model, with 2.8 trillion total parameters, using a mixture of experts framework with 896 experts. Remember, it activates only 16 experts per token for efficiency, features a 1 million token context window, and was released with full open weights on Hugging Face. Now, let's move to an important environmental body, the National Biodiversity Authority, NBA. The context is that following directions from a suo motu proceeding by the National Green Tribunal, NGT, the NBA constituted a multidisciplinary expert committee on invasive alien species. So, what exactly is the NBA? It's an autonomous statutory body under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India. It performs regulatory, advisory, and facilitative functions to safeguard India's biological resources and associated traditional knowledge. On its origin, it was established on the 1st of October 2003. And on its statutory mandate, this is genuinely important. It was formed by the central government to implement the provisions of the Biological Diversity Act 2002, and this itself followed India's ratification of the UN Convention on Biological Diversity back in 1992. Its aim is to ensure the conservation of biological diversity, promote the sustainable use of its components, and secure the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from the utilization of biological resources, a principle known as access and benefit sharing, or ABS. Now, let's go through the key functions of the NBA, and this is genuinely comprehensive, so let's slow down. It advises the central government, providing strategic recommendations to the union government on biodiversity conservation, sustainable utilization, and fair benefit sharing mechanisms. It handles notification of biodiversity heritage sites, advising state governments on selecting and notifying areas of significant ecological importance as biodiversity heritage sites under Section 37 of the Act. It also regulates intellectual property and commercial access, regulating and granting prior approvals under Sections 3, 4, and 6 of the Act for foreign individuals or entities seeking access to Indian biological resources, research transfers, or obtaining intellectual property rights based on biological material. That's exactly the kind of anti-biopiracy safeguard worth remembering. It oversees decentralized state boards, coordinating with 28 state biodiversity boards, SBBs, that regulate commercial utilization and biosurveys by Indian citizens within their respective territories. Now, here's a genuinely massive number worth holding on to. It empowers local biodiversity management committees, BMCs, overseeing approximately 2.76 lakh local-level BMCs, set up at panchayat and municipal levels, responsible for chronicling local traditional knowledge via People's Biodiversity Registers, PBR. That's a genuinely vast grassroots-level network. And it constitutes expert committees, exercising statutory powers to form multidisciplinary expert panels, such as the newly constituted Panel on Invasive Alien Species, to address emergent national ecological risks, exactly the action described in today's context. On significance, the NBA prevents biopiracy by regulating access to India's biological resources and ensuring benefits are shared with local communities. And it supports India's commitments under the Convention on Biological Diversity and the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. So, to quickly recap for your exam, the NBA was established in 2003 under the Biological Diversity Act 2002 to implement India's commitments following the 1000, 1992 UN Convention on Biological Diversity. Remember, it oversees 28 state biodiversity boards and about 2.76 lakh local biodiversity management committees. And it recently formed an expert committee on invasive alien species following NGT directions. Finally, let's turn to today's mapping topic, and this one's genuinely significant globally: UNESCO's list of World Heritage in danger. The context is that at the 48th World Heritage Committee session in Busan, South Korea, UNESCO inscribed new cultural and natural sites on the World Heritage list and added 6 vulnerable sites to the list of World Heritage in danger. So, what exactly is this list? The list of World Heritage in danger is an international conservation mechanism established under the 1972 World Heritage Convention. It highlights World Heritage properties threatened by severe risks, such as armed conflict, natural disasters, rapid urbanization, poaching, or pollution, enabling UNESCO to allocate emergency technical assistance, mobilize global conservation resources, and urge member states to take corrective action. Now, let's go through the 6 new sites added, because this is genuinely dense with names and locations. So let's take them one group at a time. First, there are sites inscribed on an emergency basis. The Boma Badingilo Migratory Landscape in South Sudan is a vast East African savanna ecosystem that hosts the world's largest terrestrial mammal migration, and it reflects rich cultural and herding traditions across diverse local ethnic groups. Its primary threats include commercial poaching, wildlife trafficking, infrastructure development, persistent local insecurity, and limited institutional capacity. The Mount Amel Castles in southern Lebanon is a network of 5 hilltop fortresses, including Beaufort, Toron, Dubié, Maron, and Chama, illustrating the evolution of regional defensive systems from the Crusades and Islamic dynasties through the 19th century. Its primary threats stem from heavy damage and ongoing structural jeopardy caused by active regional military conflicts. Sebastia, in the state of Palestine, near Nablus in the West Bank, preserves continuous archaeological layers from the 9th century BCE, when Samaria Sebaste was the capital of the Northern Kingdom of Israel through Hellenistic, Roman, Byzantine, Crusader, and Ottoman throne village periods. Its primary threats include planned land expropriation for national park projects, conflict impacts, development pressure, and site erosion. Now, let's move to sites inscribed upon committee recommendation, a slightly different pathway onto this same list. The ancient city of Tauric Chersonese and its Chora in the Autonomous Republic of Crimea, Ukraine, is an ancient Greek city and its agricultural hinterland known as the Chora along the Black Sea coast. Its primary threats include a lack of state conservation oversight due to temporary Russian military occupation, coupled with integrity loss from unauthorized construction and unmonitored excavations. The historic inner city of Paramaribo in Suriname is a former Dutch colonial trading town, featuring a distinct blend of European architecture and native South American materials. Its primary threats come from modern high-density construction projects, such as a new National Assembly Hall and a multi-story parking garage, built without heritage impact assessments, compromising its historic urban landscape. And Tyre, in Lebanon, is an ancient Phoenician island city, famed for its historic harbor, Roman hippodrome, and monumental ruins. Its primary threats involve direct structural jeopardy and potential destruction, arising from ongoing regional armed hostilities. Notice a pattern across several of these sites. War and conflict feature repeatedly as a primary threat, which tells you a great deal about the current state of global heritage preservation. So, to quickly recap for your exam, the list of World Heritage in danger under the 1972 World Heritage Convention gained 6 new sites at the 48th committee session in Busan. Remember, 3 were inscribed on an emergency basis: Boma Badingilo in South Sudan, Mount Amel Castles in Lebanon, and Sebastia in Palestine, while 3 others, Tauric Chersonese in Crimea, Paramaribo in Suriname, and Tyre in Lebanon, were added upon committee recommendation. And that brings us to the end of today's Prelims in Focus. In today's session, we covered the ancient Buddhist site of Sarnath from GS Paper 1, Art and Culture, the Corporate Mitra Scheme from GS Paper 3, Economy and Government Schemes, BitChat Repositories from GS Paper 3, Science and Technology, the Kimi K3 AI Model from GS Paper 3, Science and Technology, the National Biodiversity Authority from GS Paper 3, Environment, and UNESCO's list of World Heritage in danger under mapping. For the complete current affairs article and today's practice MCQs, visit insightsonindia.com using the link given in the description. Also, subscribe to the Insights IAS YouTube channel and join our official Telegram group for regular UPSC-related updates and learning resources. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you again in the next session.